We are at my shop in Salem, and Trevor's in the hot rod, just like he was this last weekend. Hopefully you followed us and saw a little bit about our weekend. It was, as my father would say, hotter than young love out there, and we persevered, and we got the car to run respectably, and we went 545 at 267 and a half, so we're pretty pleased. We came back to step on it on Sunday. Of course, that's the day it got to be 187 in the shade. Well, it's a slight exaggeration, but it was 100 degrees. So I talked the track into letting us run at the beginning of the noon session for the feature cars instead of at the end, because I was trying to get the coolest track conditions. So Derbs and I, he's there working on that seat, we went up and checked the track, and we did it with our Grippo, where we can check the available traction, and it pulled well. I'll explain that at another time. And then we checked the temperature. It was already 111. Now it's plenty warm, but I had a real aggressive tune-up in it. We were going to run a 30, and it needed to charge hard early to make that happen. And I had that tune-up in. In fact, the guys had busted their buns Saturday in the heat as we pulled both cylinder heads off. Let them work on that seat there. And we pulled both heads off the car, and we thinned out the head gaskets. I did 10 on the odd bank and 5 on the even bank, and that was because at the time they were staggered, and now they're the same. So I knew it was going to make more power, and I left the mag alone, which meant it was going to make more power. So we go up at 111. Well, in the 10 minutes that it took us then to get Trevor in the car, tow up, they gave us a signal of light, the track went to 132 degrees. And I didn't know that until after we ran the car. So we sent it, and it ran good early. It went 967 to 60 foot, and it was charging hard to the 330 when at 1.2 seconds, it took the tire right off, went 1 to 1. So Trevor felt it just shake his brains out, didn't know what lane he was in, which means it was tire shake, not quiver. And so he wisely lifted at 1.8. So the crazy part is we'd made it to the 330 the day before at 2.5 seconds. And yesterday, with him taking the tire off at 1.2, we made it to the 330 in 2.7. Now, all that's a lot of numbers. I'm just telling you, the car was hauling buns. It was making the power. The problem was that 132 degree track was just not going to support it. Okay, so that gets us to today. So I'm going to show you something here. So when I drove the car, when Russ drove the car, got all our trinkets and toys here. We have the rule is in our class that you have to have what's called a poured seat. So it used to be that you just climb in the car and whatever the aluminum seat is what it is. Well, after some accidents, I'm going to set that down there, they wanted the driver to fit more snugly in the car. So that seat back that you're looking at there is one we made for me 100 years ago. And you can tell, and this is really depressing, but see how there's precious little material there. There's just not much thickness there. You know why? It's because I have a lot of thickness in me. Yeah, so not much room for seat material if you got a big driver. So the problem was now we put Trevor in, and he's not as big as I am, and so he fit loosely in the car. That's Trevor. So he used this darn thing on top of my seat. He used that blue foam mother, and he fit better, but it's not right. So he bought a seat kit, and what's it called? Seatinserts.com is where he bought it. The guy was good to us today and helped us out with some instructions. And it's got all these tiny little foam beads in this thin plastic bag. It's about the thickness of a sandwich baggie, I would say. But there's gobs of these tiny little styrofoam beads. Well, then you mix this catalyst, those 2 bottles right there. So one's a catalyst and one's a hardener, and you mix that in that little bucket, and it turns this light blue. You pour that in the bag, and that's what's going to harden all those styrofoam beads into one cohesive seat. And then we knew we needed to vacuum the air out of it. We thought we could use my vacuum cleaner. We were wrong. So Trevor and I jumped in my 500 horsepower car, not the 4,000 horsepower car that this is, and we hauled buns over to Harbor Freight, got us a vacuum pump there, and Derbs has got that hooked up and has vacuumed the air out of that. So now we're just shaping it to fit Trevor as good as we can with a little, I don't know if I'm doing that well or not, but with a little extra at the small of his back and some support up by his shoulders too. So we're just trying to knead that material up to where it needs to be. So that's what we're doing, and we're going to get that done. Once it hardens, then you'll have a bunch of excess. And that was, although the process was different with mine 100 years ago, the net result was the same. You end up with a bag of hardened foam of some nature. So then you take a knife and trim off the excess, because at that point, of course, it's hard. Trim off the excess, and then we cover it with the black material, well, just like that material there that was covering mine. And so you cover it all up. So by the time you're done, it looks real professional, and it custom fits Trevor's body. And you know, these cars are really amazingly safe to drive, and that's true. This car with 4,000 horsepower is safer to drive than whatever you drive to the racetrack, and that's a fact. Every time an incident happens, you know, we were talking some smack about NHRA on the way to Harbor Freight and back, Trevor and I, but one of the things they have been really, really good at is improving safety. So for example, as they're doing that, I'll just share a couple things. When I got the car in 2000, this titanium helmet shield did not exist. Well, sadly, we had an incident with Darrell Russell, pardon me, top fuel guy, and just so sad, it took his life. But he had a motor that let go in a top fuel car, and what happens, looks just about like this. When the motor lets go, now you've got shrapnel aluminum parts coming out. Well, guess where they go? Right into the big Goodyears. So it cut the tire. Well, the tire's got a bazillion mile an hour tire speed at the time, so the tire has now grown to most of 4 foot. They're 3 foot stationary, and as they grow to about 4 foot. Well, that aluminum gets in the tire, cuts the tire. Because of the centrifugal force, it heads right up there, and it rips that wing off. Well, now the problem is this car is just like a dart. The heavy end wants to go first. So if that tire takes the wing off, well, when it did, it took the wing tree structure. See, this is the wing tree here. And in a fuel car or a top fuel car, the only cars in drag racing, right there, that require their own specific chassis tag for the wing tree. Top alcohol dragster does not require that. A fuel, top fuel, the only cars in drag racing that require that. And it's because this wing, unlike most Honda cars or most any cars, the wing is not for looks. It actually does stuff that's pretty damned important. If you lose that wing, it's like a dart, the heavy end wants to go first. So with Darrell Russell, sadly, the diagonals folded up, and one piece of it somehow got through the roll cage here, and sadly, it took his life. I'll save you the grotesque parts. It was just profoundly sad. He was such a good guy. So it took his life. So shortly after that, boom, new rule. You either had to have chromoly metal up here, or you could use titanium, which is what this is. Another couple $1,000s, but the car is now safer. I can remember also when, and I don't remember who crashed, but there was a rule even before that. If you crash a dragster, think of a crumple zone in a passenger car. So when you see those insurance videos where they crash them on purpose and they wad them all up, obviously they're trying to keep the passenger compartment intact, and they don't care about what happens to the rest of the car. Well, guess what, kids? This is pretty much the same way. So if you hit something in a dragster, it's going to wad all that right up. And the challenge was when you got back to the foot box, we must be making progress. Are we doing good? Yay. When you got back to the foot box, it got much more rigid. So all of the driver's compartment area is extraordinarily strong. What they did, and I don't have the tin off to show you now, I'll show you another video, but there was a new rule right in front of the foot box. We had to add 2 chromoly hoops that went, how do I describe this? They would form a point, so you'd weld it to the end of the foot box, and they would come together out in, get my hand in here, out in the middle of the car, one on the left, one on the right, and they come together to make a point. And the issue was, if it hit something, you didn't have a blunt surface anymore. Well, if it contacted the wall, it would deflect. Here's another one. Back to the wing here. See those cables? See if I can get that in the video. Right there. Okay, that is a rule. Now, I'll tell you, I did this before it was a rule. So what's going on? I had this wing rewrapped with additional carbon fiber, and a local guy, Kerry Vanderbeck, profoundly talented boy, and he knows it, but that's all right, he's really good. He wrapped a cable that I'd bought into the carbon fiber. So you can see that raised area. That's the cable going all the way around the wing. And then this little pigtail comes out. I attach to that. Now, I don't normally have it dangling like that. I normally do, let me do this here, that, and I pull it taut just so it looks better. That comes down the wing tree, goes to the parachutes, and it's right there. That's a rule. There's a couple different ways you can do it, but you got to have them. Well, I had that before it was a rule. Why? If the motor lets go, if it takes out a tire, it's going to take out the wing. And it's going to happen before the driver knows there's a problem. So if it does that, the heavy end's going to go first. It's going to swap ends, and the heavy end's going to go down the track before the light end is. So what that does is if the wing comes off, it will instantly rip that wire out of the parachute, and it will deploy the parachutes. And parachutes are your very best friend if you've got a problem, because they're going to pull the car straight and keep the back end behind the front end, which is always good in a dragster. So today we have the privilege of having Trevor at our shop. He's normally back in what I would say sunny California by now, but now it's sunny Oregon too, because it's hot up here. It's going to be 90 degrees today, and that's hot for us. We're used to 60 in Oregon. And we're pouring him a seat so that now I feel really good that everything I can do to keep Trevor safe in this car has been done, including pouring him a custom seat that fits him properly. So I'm just real happy that we're getting this done. Our next outing is going to be in 9 days, but who's counting? We're going to be back at Woodburn, be parking probably Tuesday night, Wednesday night, somewhere in there. And then Thursday, we got Keith on the phone. You want to talk, Keith? Whose phone? Sorry, that's Keithy, baby. Crew dude and dear friend. Yeah, and Trevor stayed at Keith's house and he drove his rig down here. Anyway, the Seattle points race got canceled for weather. That would have been probably 3-ish weeks ago. And so what they did, which is great for us, is they moved it to Woodburn. So Thursday of Woodburn is qualifying for the Seattle race. Friday is eliminations for the Seattle race. Saturday then is the beginning of the Woodburn points race. And then Sunday will be eliminations. So we've got to be prepared to make 10 laps, which is a lot. 10 clutch packs minimum if we don't test. And I don't think we will because of what we did last weekend. That paid huge dividends for me. So I go into this outing really confident that I can make this car haul ass. I'll tell you something else we did. If you got to be into the sport a little bit to appreciate this, but if you follow it closely, this will mean something to you. Trevor has done such a good job on driving the car, keeping it safe, keeping it in the middle of the lane, knowing when to lift, all the details like that, that I decided it was time to start working on his staging skills. Because what we want to do, the car stages with the front tire, and yes, if you notice, they are offset from one another. That's a rule. So this tire is just shy of 2 inches behind that tire. Why? Because the staging beam, there's 2 staging beams that are infrared and shoot across the racing track. So the first pre-stage beam, as he pulls in, he's going to trip that light and the top light will come on. He's pre-staged. As he rolls forward, he's going to get to the stage light about a foot in front of that. Well, when you're qualifying, the only thing that matters is your ET. The quickest ET qualifies the best. Well, that's what we want. So I have him stage really shallow, which gives us most of a foot of a head start, of a run before the timer starts. And with this kind of power, it matters. It can make a difference. I would imagine a few hundredths. So for example, if you ran a 39 with a 5 and you staged deep to do that, that could easily be a 35, pardon me, a 39 with a 1. So a few hundredths. Well, I'm telling you, I've seen qualifying where you could have 3 or 4 cars all stacked up within a few hundredths of each other. And that staging could then make the difference. Okay, well, here's the downside of that. When you stage real shallow, he's got to go another foot before the clock starts counting, which means it's even harder to cut a good light because you got to go another foot. Well, I guess I can tell you, last year, Trevor struggled to cut good lights, and he worked his tail off over the winter. We both have practice trees that are real small. They're about a foot high, but they've got all the lights on them. Well, guess what? He stepped up and bought a full-size Christmas tree, and he worked his tail off every day over the winter. So when we got to the Winter Nationals in February down at Pomona, his first light, instead of a 125, was a frickin' 044 light. Stout. Well, and he did more of those. His worst light of the weekend was an 083. Now we get to Woodburn, and I tell him, look, I want you to stage shallow. Well, I know his lights are going to suffer. Guess what? 044 light. And then yesterday, 053 light. So I'm super proud. He does a good job knowing how far to drive the car, when it's time to lift, and now we've got a driver who can cut a light. If you give me a driver who knows how to drive, knows how to get it to the other end, keep it safe, I'll tune this thing, and we have a chance, if things go our way, to turn on a wind light or two along the way. And that's what we're trying so hard to do. There's a lot of really, really fast cars out there and some really stinking good drivers. So that's a tall order to do. But we're going to try really hard to see if I can get Trevor some wind lights this next outing. So let's see how they're doing on getting this seat poured. So I know you're hot. You got sweat in some not good places. Are we gaining on it though?
I'm going to be real fun on an airplane.
Yeah, I'll bet. You're going to smell real good. I can remember as a kid, this is so disgusting. I used Right Guard in those days and didn't want to wash your shirt, so I'd just spray it down with Right Guard, color good. Guess I didn't need to tell you that. So we know that trick will work for the airplane. So are we getting this seat dialed?
Yeah, we're at the point now where I can sit here for 15 minutes without the vacuum on, and then everything starts to harden and says. So this has the consistency of when I was a kid. It's stuff called Sloan.
Yeah,
I
remember that stuff.
Gel stuff you could play with. It was a kid's toy.
Well, that sucks. I'm too old for that.
It was Nickelodeon. It was along the lines of Play-Doh, but it was like a beaded Play-Doh.
It was like beaded Play-Doh, and you could form it in all kinds of stuff.
I'll be damned.
That's the consistency of this stuff.
It would never get hard, though. That was the thing about it.
Seatinserts.com. I got it on Garvin Motorsports website. And Sean Brown uses them. The guy just pulled one for Don Garlitz, like for his tackle cars and stuff. It's a pretty cool kit. It was 4 steps and then 50 steps of how to do it in sequence.
Yeah, there they are.
Really nice, yeah.
And the video that we watched wasn't for a A-Field Dragster. It was a quarter midget car.
He has many applications.
Yeah.
Exercise bags.
So any hot rod you got, they can make that work. And you'll fit in your car way better, way tighter. Well, we're vacuuming some more. So anyway, I'll probably call her good here, and then I'll shoot when we get this all done and we get it upholstered and it's in. We'll show you what it looks like. But I just wanted to share this with y'all today, that we're at the shop and we had the privilege of having Trevor. He's always gone by now, so it's been fun. He got to hang out and put all the stuff away, all the toys away. And there's the copier van, but here's our racing trailer with all the crap in it. And it's kind of like that, what is it, the 100-pound sack with 200 pounds of crap. But there's our golfing cart up there. Our clutch box is way up there. Yeah, right there, that black box all the way to the front. Oh, that's our bicycle too. And then the chillers on the other side. So this lift, then we put all that crap on there, and then we lift the lift up off the floor to get it out of the way. And now the race car fits all the way in there. And it uses up every inch of real estate we have. Then we've got our tables. That's our parts washing station that Robbie uses. And then that's extra tools, We should not need anything in there because we've got individual boxes. Then the most important box, yay, which is now empty, that's where the beer and the water goes. But you know that you just can't have too much stuff. So as an example, I've collected fasteners over the years. And so as an example, whoops, sorry about that. This is an example just of the nuts that we've got from, and AN washers, and then 12-point nuts, locking, non-locking, jet nuts of all sizes, thick washers. And we use these quite a bit. And all this stuff is just full of different kinds of fasteners that the race car has, all the socket cap ones, and then 12-point stuff up here. So you just about can't have too much for fasteners. Now this little deal here has got the really expensive ones. Those are the Nas Titanium Fasteners that are in there. So those are going to be $5, $10, $20 a piece. An NAS fastener is going to be for a specific length application. I'll have to explain that on another day. But it's often for shear strength, not clamping force, like the wing tree would be. Over here, we're going to have a bunch of MSD parts, caps and rotors and crap. Check this out. This is something Russ and I did back at 19 when he was here. But we wanted to make stuff super fast to change. Russell designed. I always joke about how we did this together, which meant I stood there and said, yeah, that's really cool. And it's upside down now. But that chromoly tube right there goes in another mating tube, and it takes one fastener. There's a stud on the car, a nut on the backside. We can change points, boxes, and coils in 45 seconds. It's badass cool, very cool. And everything's about that. It's got to be fast. Over here is my infamous silver box. So if you don't have a place to put anything, you put it in the silver box. Where else? So we've got this is our air meter, so we can check the quality of the air. We've got 2 of those. The chargers for the race pack are in there. And then some of my favorite parts are these. These are the hubcaps. I had these wheels made in 2009. The brand is Lindsay. But check this out. They were so kind. They did my logo right in the end of those hubcaps. So we take them off so we don't scratch them before we put the car away. And that's up in silver box. Below here, whoops, crap in the way. Sorry. Is some other spendy stuff. For example, our Anton par gauge. So we can only run 95% of nitro. The other 5% has to be methanol, and they check. So when you're testing, you don't have to do that, but there's no point not to, because you won't learn anything. You got to learn how to make it run as it's legal. So there's that Anton par name, and this turns on just with your body heat over it, and get that back here. And so now we'll put that in and draw up some nitro, and it'll tell us the percentage. It doesn't be a specific gravity. That's how it does it. But crap, that was over $4,000 for that. It's just nuts how expensive this stuff is. But you can't run without it. You wouldn't know where you're at. Oh, here's the other end of that. So clutch box, extra water for Robbie and the toter. That's 1 chiller. We have 2. See, our chiller, that thing's badass. That was $4,500, and it's awesome. But guess what? It ran low on coolant down at Pomona. Here's a bunch of fuel jugs with nitro. Ran low on coolant, so didn't work. I had to go borrow one from Rick Hinkleman, and he was super kind to let me borrow it. I said, that's it. I want a spare. So Trevor got us hooked up. We've got a spare chiller, and we're actually using it now. Our awning rails are right there. So all those get set up. So we've got a 13-foot wide awning by 35, 40 foot that hooks on the side of our trailer, of course. So that's what we're doing. The toter's up there. And we're about done for the day, getting this seat poured. I really appreciate y'all checking this out. It means the world to us, because I know you all, stuff you could be doing other than watching this dang video. So we really do appreciate it. We pay attention to who's doing what. If you have questions or comments, please let me know. I do my best to answer any question y'all might have. But thank you so much for following us. We'll get you pictures of how the seat turns out, and be back at the Woodburn drag strip for our points race in 9 days. So please check it out. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Talk to y'all soon.